Hi folks, it's Ron with Ideal Industries and welcome back to the channel. Hey, in this video, I want to talk to you about some safety ratings on test equipment you may or may not be real familiar with. And, earlier in the week, I fielded a call from a guy who's got a 25-year-old digital multimeter, and he says he's thinking about replacing it. And I told him if it's that old, you really ought to replace it. And, the way test equipment is made today has changed quite a bit over time. And what they think about when they make that test equipment has changed quite a bit. And one of those things is safety. And I'm going to tell you that if your meter's 15 years or older, you really ought to think about replacing it. And one of the most important things to look at when you buy that new piece of test equipment is to look for third-party testing laboratory certifications, and those are usually on the back of the tester. So look for a label that says UL or CE or CSA, and of course there's others. And these testing laboratories will also give the tester a category rating, which is usually on the front of the tester someplace nearby where normally the leads go into the tester. Now, the category rating tells us the equipment meets specific safety guidelines, and it has been tested to those guidelines by these third-party laboratories. You know, a number of years ago, the industry adopted what's considered to be the International Electrotechnical Commission's, or the IEC's, safety standards model for measurement, control, and laboratory use of test equipment. And that's really where all these category ratings have come from. So unless you're from the industry, you may not even know what that means. And the category rating tells us the environment or location that test equipment actually is safe to use in. And obviously, between commercial and residential work, we could experience significant differences in currents and voltages. Okay. Now, there are actually 4 category ratings for test equipment, and the higher that rating, the higher the peak impulse transient voltage that the test equipment is actually designed to absorb. Okay. And keep in mind, this is over microseconds of time, not seconds in time, so very, very short periods of time. And you should understand that as you've got a piece of test equipment on a live circuit, things can change and loads do turn on and off. And at times, that piece of test equipment that's hooked to that circuit can experience some very high peak impulse transient voltages that can actually be thousands of volts, but again, over a very short period of time. So again, the tester's got to be able to absorb this and not be damaged by it. You know, and obviously my table saw over here is not going to put quite the impulse on a line, single phase, that a 3-phase motor might in a commercial job. So knowing the environment that the tester is designed to be used in is kind of important. And, you might be surprised at the number of calls we get from people with Category 2 rated testers that are no longer working and find out that they're on a commercial job and that tester has experienced a pretty high transient impulse voltage that actually ruined the meter. Now, most of us are not going to sit down and figure out what the peak impulse transient voltage is that you might experience in an electrical circuit. So through these category ratings, we can actually, it's better to describe the location and the environment that test equipment is actually safe to be used in. And if you know the category rating of the tester, you know where it's safe to use and not damage either the meter or yourself. This chart represents the different environments that the different category ratings actually relate to. And from Category 1, say inside of an appliance, all the way out to Category 4, which is actually going to be outside of the building. Now, Category 1 testers is the lowest rating, and those testers are designed for telecommunications, electronic gear, and any other low-energy equipment that already actually has built into some transient overvoltage protection. And an example of something like that would be like a copy machine. Now, Category 2 rated testers here are designed for loads that plug into electrical outlets, so outside of electrical outlets in rooms, okay? So for either fixed or non-fixed loads like, appliances and lighting and any portable equipment you might have. Now, you can also safely use these at outlets that are at least 30 feet away from a Category 3 rated source and 60 feet away from a Category 4 rated source. And so that's the type of tester that a typical homeowner or hobbyist would probably want to have. Now, Category 3 here is really the minimum tester I would recommend to any electrical contractors or industrial guys out there. And these type of testers, Category 3, can be safely used at electrical distribution panels and in primary and branch circuits. And, of course, anywhere, of course, you could use a Category 2 or a Category 1 type tester. And you can also use them on any permanently installed loads in the buildings. And those are like motors and lighting systems and drives and load centers. And also, all those devices are separated from the utility service by at least a single layer of transformer isolation. Okay. Now, Category 4 here is really the highest rating you can get, and these type of testers can be used at what we call the origins of the installation or at the utility service itself. So outside of the building, at the utility service, you can also use them on that service drop going from the pole to the building, any overhead runs you might have going out to any remote buildings, or any underground runs you might have going out to, say, like a well pump. And you can also use them from the electrical meter to the distribution panel in the building as well. Now, besides the category rating, the voltage should also be clearly stated on the front of the tester as well. because you can actually go out and buy a Category 3 rated tester that's rated out to 1,000 volts. And it might have a dual rating of Category 4, say up to 600 volts. So knowing what that category rating is on that tester will keep both you and that test equipment safe when you're out there working with electrical equipment. Hey, thanks for watching the channel, folks. I really appreciate it. I'll plan on seeing you on the next one. And I'm Ron with Ideal.